All right, guys. Friday Night Live with Strong Roots Resources, also known as me, Kerry Brown. We've got quite a bit to cover today. I've got a segment that I'm going to introduce. I've got some things to catch you up on, things that are happening in the near to long term future, and we're just going to cover it all. So, probably first off, our next gathering. For those who don't know, we hold gatherings quarterly here on the homestead in West Knox County. Our next one will be March 3rd. That's a Sunday. It's always the first Sunday. And we're going to go from about noon until 4 o'clock. And this time around, I've got a little bit of structure I'm going to add in. So the first couple of hours will be the tour, will be some some Q&A during the tour, so we can show the gardens, we can show the sheep, we can show our pasture management system, we can show the solar system and all that good stuff. And the second half we're going to reserve for having everybody around the campfire if the weather cooperates, or whatever we decide to corral ourselves around. And that's when we're going to do our bartering. That's when we're going to have some refreshments and just kind of catch up, do the networking, swap business cards, and do all that good stuff. So, as I'm happy to report, as the gatherings grow and we have more and more people. Last time we had, I think, a total of 25 people over the course of the 4 hours. I can kind of get pulled in multiple directions, and I realize that I'm not able to complete one conversation before I'm beginning another one. So I really want to try to give people my time and my full attention. So I'm just adding a little bit of structure. Hey, Cormac, it is good to see you. You're popping in from the other side of the pond. I don't know what time it is over there, but I appreciate you coming in and being here. Thank you for hopping in. It is good to see you guys, and I appreciate y'all just coming in to hang out on what is a rather rainy and dreary day for us here in East Tennessee. We've kind of had, we'll have the drizzle, and then it'll pour and be really loud. And I checked the radar right before I came out here to the shop, which is, metal roof. So rain, very loud, kind of hard to broadcast out here, but it looks like we're going to be clear. And hopefully most of the rain, I'm really hopeful, is out of here, because we've got a foraging class coming up tomorrow. And it is whiskey time for Cormac. Nice. I made some coffee because I still got stuff to do, and I just wanted something warm. It's just, we saw it coming in yesterday, and it's just a rainy winter. It's just what we do around here. I'm more tolerant of it right now because we're starting to see the signs of spring. I'm starting to see the buds swell on certain things, and the elderberry are perking up and all that. So I'm okay with the rain today. Once we start getting into February, my mood and my outlook seems to drastically improve. So we, like I said, we've got the foraging class coming up tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and call it full. Of course, there's a chance that people are going to cancel at the last minute. But when I sent out the follow-up email, I said, we're doing this unless it's tornadoes. So it could be rainy. I told people to be prepared for that. I can point out plants and trees and stuff in the rain just as well as I can in the sunshine. I'm not going to be taking notes out there. So I'm going to encourage people to either, bring a notebook under their poncho, or, I don't care if we might, I don't know if we're going to film this or not. I haven't really thought about that. I might set up my camera and ask if somebody wants to do the camera work, and I'll give them free admission. So we've got that. I'm going to pause a minute here and say hello to everybody that's popping in. Mike Saunders, good to hear from you, my friend. How is the solar business? I don't want to hear about your bad weather predictions. You can keep that. And my panels aren't happy. My panels, I have not had any sunshine on them, so I need to take that up with you after a while. And Backwoods, good to see you, my friend. How's the meat business? It's nice to catch up with you guys who pop in for Brian's stuff in the morning, because honestly, I love the Lots Project, and Brian is a great friend. but I usually just don't roll out of bed that early to catch it. I will try. I think I tried for like the last 10 minutes this morning, but this time of year, when it's a little bit slower, I sleep until I wake up. That is kind of one of the rewards that I allow myself after 15 plus years of night shift and 24-hour shifts and never really sleeping well. I like to get my sleep these days. So that was a good one. Backwood says he's killing it out there. Nice. Nice. I'm busy, making lambs out here, although we haven't had any this week, but we continue to be on baby watch for the one we call Big Mama, she's so big I don't know how she can hold herself up right now. Off Grid says that found where all the runoff went, right to where you put your greenhouse. Well, dang it. Hopefully it can be diverted or dealt with, or you can throw some tile in or something like that. That is true. Speaking of the rain, and I've suggested this to people more, if you're trying to design your property well, it's actually good to be out in the rain and see where water's coming from, where it's going, and what it's taking with it. And if it's making ruts or causing you issues. The house that is I should say adjacent to our property, but we all share the same driveway, the same easement. They added some structures back in the summer, and they never really did get it seeded and straw or anything like that. It's still muddy up there, and you can see the mud coming down the driveway. And I'm not necessarily being overly critical, but I try to discourage soil that's uncovered, because what happens obviously is erosion, and it's bad for your nutrients. It's bad for the environment, in that you wind up with a bunch of silt and stuff and in your creeks and in your rivers. So cover your ding dang soil. That's what I got to say about that. Mike's looking at a battery addition project. I continue to have people asking about solar projects, so let me know if you're still wanting work or consults or to eyeball anything like that here on this side of the state. You let me know, because I keep running into it. And Backwood is hoping for piglets. Old bacon seeds coming in. Nice. Good to see you guys wearing it out there. So yeah, back to the foraging class. I was trying to keep it to around 12 people max, because it's easier to communicate with a smaller group. I don't have to raise my voice as much, and there's time for questions and that sort of thing. So I've got 3 hours set aside tomorrow from noon to 3. And yesterday and today, I kind of wandered around the farm and made a route and kind of marked turns with flags, including a few specific things I wanted to point out, because I'm starting to see stuff like the bitter crest coming in, and the avens, and all the little things that are tiny and green, but they're down there. So we're looking forward to having folks out, take about 3 hours, point out some stuff, have a little bit of fellowship after the fact. So I don't mind if it's a little drizzly, but I'm gonna hope that we have a break in the really heavy stuff between noon and 3. That would be cool. Canadian Farmstead, peace out to you as well, my friend. Thank you for coming in. So I have an agenda over here written down, but what I need to know from you guys is, do you want the new segment first and early, which is going to be hilarious, or do you want me to save it till last? We can put it up to a vote, because we're all about the democracy around here. Backwoods, thank you for sharing that. You guys, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You guys have a most excellent evening, and we will catch up with you next time. And yes, we'll be on Meet the Critters. Let's do it. I'm also going to be talking with Brian Alexovich tomorrow. I don't know if we're recording it and posting it later or doing it live, but we're going to talk about this sheep program that I'm running out here, or that I'm part of. So we'll get into that as well. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to tell me if you want to wait on the fun segment, or if you want me to go ahead and hit it, because I just got to add fresh content for the new segment just a little while ago while I was working out, and I kind of can't wait to share it. So But a couple other quick announcements, um, or I should say, just catching up from the week. We did. I got the preliminary notes wrapped up for my consult customer out on the west end of the state, and have kind of begun the communication with them back and forth to start dialing in some specifics of the design. So that's it's always nice when I get those notes done, because that actually, it takes me longer to do those notes, really, than it takes me to drive out to that end of the state and back again. And that's probably because I'm a little ADD anyhow. But I have this thing when I'm transcribing these notes, which is not just a transcription of what we talked about, but it includes expansion upon multiple things. Like we might say it, and it depends on the person's level of experience, but on a site visit, I may say, hey, I feel like we should tie this system in here, and it'll go to here, and it'll go to here. Maybe like, rabbit hutch here adjacent to this portion of the garden with vermicomposting bins underneath. And when I send the document, I have pretty much a how-to article. Either it's one that I've written, or it's one that I found that was better than I could write, and I send that link and give credit to those people for that. So notes take me forever, and it's just always nice when I have that first, what I call the primary document done, and then it's just adjustments and follow up from there. So that was good to get done. I also wrapped up some notes from a local site visit for a potential a person who was looking at purchasing some land, and we've got, looking at the week ahead, I've got three. They're not consults, but estimates coming up for pollinator garden work, a kind of combination food forest guild, wildlife shelter and food plot that a lady is interested in, and then another kind of a pollinator garden expansion and improvement project just literally around the corner from us. So I've got all three of those on the agenda for next week. And it's that time of year where people, we had that warm up, and a bunch of people went outside and started looking around, and they said it's time to be messing around in the garden again. And I've been getting the calls, so I'm happy about that, because I want the overwhelming majority of my labor work this year to be directly in line with habitat development, using the permaculture principles, using ecological design. I am making every effort to be picky about those jobs and create more distance away from kind of the traditional landscaping and traditional labor, because I feel like that's what I'm ready to do. So I've got that scheduled out, and then I've got 3 or 4 people who are like, I know I want your services, but I'm just not quite ready yet. So I kind of, when I check in with these people, they say, and they give me an answer like that, I say, can I check back with you in about 4 weeks? And if they say yes, it goes on the calendar to check back with that person, because I hate for stuff to fall off my radar. So that's just a little tip of mine. If it needs to happen, it doesn't matter if it's a little task or a big task. It goes on the calendar. And sometimes I'll have a couple of days where all those notifications stack up, but I'm still able to get them checked off. And the last couple of days have kind of been like that, where I've just been checking off these little tasks. So since I've been back from the west end of the state, some of you guys were recipients of the story of the Jeep and its absolute gas guzzling shenanigans. We did finally narrow that down to the front O2 sensor. And it turns out, when you're like me and your budget's tight for a little while and you got to get some funds up and running before you can drop a lot of money on a vehicle, if not absolutely necessary, turns out you can just unplug it. And that computer will reset to a default setting. And as far as I have been able to tell, it's running fine. I don't seem to be using nearly the amount of gas that I was. But I don't think I can get away with that forever. So it's still the plan to put in the appropriate sensor, but it's kind of a little bit involved. Went over it with Dad. He's got the tools we need. I'm going to get the part and we'll get that done before we get too far into spring. So that was a relief that I kind of had that revelation. Found some fella on YouTube after multiple searches using different search terms, finally found a guy who explained that. So I think I even sent it over to Toolman Tim's group. So if you are also in the Jeep department and you run into that issue, this guy laid it out, and he was both funny and entertaining without being too wordy and taking too dang long to get to the point, that's a rare thing. Let's do the new segment. All right, we've got a segment coming up. I'm going to try to do this every week, but it kind of depends. But at any rate, being the time of year, I have stuff listed on Marketplace. Us landscapers, you get creative about how you make money in January and February and March. But conveniently, it's time for elderberry cuttings. And I've got 6 really large elderberry shrubs, and I propagate them. I sell the cuttings. They do great. They're one of the easiest things. They're easier than willow. They're more tolerant than willow even of being started in cuttings. So I make a little Marketplace listing. And I've also got sassafras trees for sale. So I've got a few listings, but these are the 2 we're going to talk about tonight. So let me pull up. Here we go. This is in regards to the sassafras trees. I will use first names only, to be fair. Although I was real tempted to go to share everything, but we'll use first names. This lady messages me about the sassafras trees, and she says, I'm in Monroe County. I'm supposed to meet my granddaughter at the mall on Saturday. How far away are you from Foothills? We're going to have her birthday luncheon. First of all, I don't know why I need all these details. I make it very clear in the listing. For these sassafras trees, we meet up in person. I would probably only deliver them if you bought a bunch. I've got these trees listed for $15 a piece. They're on average 4 to 5 feet tall. And so when I read her message, I sent back that I can only meet at the Food City at this certain address. And she says, yes, I read that. My question was, how far away are you from the Foothills Mall so I can figure out how to or when to leave my home, etc. And at this point, I'm trying to figure out why it's my problem to tell somebody else how far their driving distance is. And honestly, I don't really know, because she's coming from an area that I don't go to all the time. And it probably depends on what time of day and what day of the week and the traffic and all that kind of stuff. And so I wrote back, ma'am, I don't know. But if you put these 2 different addresses into Google Maps, it'll give you an answer to your question, which I thought I was being helpful, because not everybody knows that you can use it in that way. You can put 2 destinations that are not where you currently are coming from, and it will give you the travel time. And she wrote back, never mind. I thought you could just quickly answer me. Thank you for your consideration. I was going to buy 5 of them. That was a nice little bit of gaslighting right there. I felt like that. Marketplace. I just, in that moment, and I'm sure you guys have done this before too, in that moment, I felt such anger and frustration that I immediately decided to block her so I couldn't reply and I couldn't do anything further, because I think I was already having an aggravating day at that moment. And so my fuse was a little short in the first place, but I just had this feeling that I better check myself before I wrecked myself, if you know what I mean. So yes, and I did. I posted about it in my group the other day. So if you want to see my commentary from a couple of days ago, you need to hop into the Telegram group. But yeah, exactly. Ping, do my work for me. I do not know where this comes from. I do not know where this comes from. And I just cannot imagine trying to shove off something that is my travel is my responsibility. I don't understand how that got put onto me. So, so there's that. And that was really the only good one I had. And that was going to be the end of the segment until about 45 minutes ago. So, like I said, I've got these elderberry cuttings up for sale. And this gentleman, Walter contacted me. Walter wanted to know how many bundles do I have, because I'm selling them in bundles of 10. 10 cuttings for $15. And for those of you who don't know, if you start an elderberry from a cutting that's 8 to 10 inches, and you get about 25 to 50% of that in the ground, it will root and you will have a 4-foot shrub in a year. That's exactly what happened to me. That's how I started mine in the rockiest, crappiest hillside soil you can imagine. And so when I did that, I was like, oh, I can provide cuttings and this will be fine. And that's just how they're propagated. I don't know too many people who try to do them from seed. Just do cuttings. It's easy. Anyhow, Walter asked how many I had. And actually, I don't really know, because I didn't go out there and count how many I would get off of these trees. I just kind of start taking clippings as people order them. And when I start to get a little low, I, either close the listing or just put, so many left. So I told him, I said, probably at least 5 bundles, but I'm cutting them off as people order them, so I don't have an exact count. And then I asked him, are you looking for a certain number? Because I'm not opposed, somebody wants a lot, I'll drop the price a little bit, especially if you're going to meet me here nearby. No big deal. I'm not, I'll negotiate. So Walter got back with me much later in the day, by the way. If you can give me 100 for $100 that are rooted and starting to grow, I think that would be a good deal for you. I think I'm going to have to hire Walter as a business advisor. Not. I don't have to tell you guys this. I don't have to tell you guys that there's a difference between taking cuttings that just takes me a few minutes of my time and a few minutes to meet people across the street versus getting the soil, putting them in soil, in pots or whatever, probably in pots if you're going to sell them. Keep them watered, keep them happy. And guess what happens when you do something like that? We call that value added, and it means it gets more freaking expensive. So I'm going to pause here for a minute. Ping. Yeah, buddy, holler at me. Email. I can ship some to you. I've been shipping them this week too. Email me at strongrootsresources@gmail.com or shoot me a text on Telegram, whatever. And we will, I'll get you squared away. They are the Nova variety, by the way. So anyhow, he wants to do the 100 for 100. I guess it's, how you can go to Kroger and do 10 for 10 on certain things. And I wrote back, I said, I'm sorry, but I can't accommodate that right now. And he said, well, can you do 50 for $50? And I said, yes, I can do that for cuttings, but not rooted plants. Again, I can't seem to get this guy to understand that this is not how economics work. He said, I would like to see them rooted and starting to grow. And here's where this is a failing of mine, guys. I think I'm too nice sometimes. I've always had a little bit of the nice guy persona, and sometimes I battle with that because I've been doing a lot of reading on what it means to be a people pleaser. And when you provide services and you want to have a good reputation, to me, it's a hard line to walk between that and becoming a people pleaser and getting walked all over. So here's my reply. When he said, again, he wants them rooted. I said, if I'm able to get some started, I will try to check back with you. I said, I generally just sell cuttings because they're easy for beginners to get rooted on their own. I'm pretty busy right now, and caring for a lot of plants does not work for me. I appreciate your interest, though. I felt like that was a pretty kind and considerate response, because I have some the cuttings that were like real slender, real small. I didn't want to sell them as cuttings, like basically the tips as they taper up and the tips are small. And I stuck a whole bunch of them in some pots. They may or may not take because they're so small. I may not remember to keep them watered. We'll just see. So it's like, I'm not going to commit to something. I don't want to run a nursery, guys. I just don't need to do it. And so I provided that answer, and here was what I got in reply. I'm not interested in spending $100 for dead sticks. Go scam somebody else. So Walter let the cat out of the bag, guys. I am scamming people with dead sticks. I scammed the guy who bought about 30 from me last year, and then a few weeks later, he sent me photos of all of these that had rooted beautifully in some in a potting soil mix that he had created. So, Carrie the scammer, sorry about that. I'm a fraud, talking out my ass and jerking you guys around. And I also blocked Walter because I was in the middle of a heavy set of deadlifts when that message came across, and I had a little extra epinephrine flowing through. So, Adventures in Marketplace. We'll see if I have anything for you next week on that brand new segment. Yeah, Ping, and if you didn't hear me, I do 10 cuttings, and honestly, I usually throw in extras because I'm a scammer. And they are, if I have to ship them, I have to get them down to about 9 inches for the flat rate package that I use. And if I get them to you like in person or we meet up or whatever, I usually go for like even 10 or 12 inches long, because the more you can get underground, the better that they'll root. The more nodes you can get buried, the better that they'll root. So, yeah, $15 per bundles of 10. And I'm probably willing to cut a deal for people who are my buddies and don't call me a scammer. So that's been fun. Interactions like that, it's funny to see how I react to it, because I think probably most of us have a pretty strong visceral response to being falsely accused. That seems to set me off. So that means that's probably something I need to work on. So I guess those kind of interactions can be reflective in a way. And yeah, Ping, I'm just going to pick up a bunch of sticks from underneath the sassafras tree and just throw them in the mail to you. I'm just going to sell people sticks. That's, yeah. So that's been fun. But despite a few aggravations like that, I have met several people this past week and gotten them hooked up with elderberry cuttings. And if you ask me, it's a deal, because if all of those root, you have 15 shrubs in a year. And if half of them root, you got 7. So it's like, what's to complain about? People spend, I saw an order recently come through that a customer sent me, showed me what they were ordering so I could help plug it in. And they spent $10 on one elderberry. And it's going to be shipped, so it can't be that big. I mean, even if they use those long boxes, it can't be more than 3 feet tall. $10, one elderberry, might die, getting shipped to you across the country. So, yeah, that's just Facebook Marketplace. I try to use eBay more often if I can, but it just really, I guess I could do it with the elderberry. I'm just not crazy about shipping stuff if I can help it. What I kind of end up doing is I hang on to packaging from other stuff I've received in the mail. Nicole's Hollow Roast packages get reused all the time. And that way I can just do like flat rate shipping, like $10 for one of the medium envelopes. And it's just simple. Where are we at on the notes? I'm bringing in a book suggestion each week. I have a really awesome library. It's kind of like my happy place. It is definitely my happy place. So I thought I would start pulling a book off a shelf each live And probably it's going to be something whatever I pull off the shelf that's helping me solve a problem. And this one, actually, it's a brand new book to me, Practical Permaculture. This is Jesse Bloom and Dave Bowline. Dave, I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. This is, I would call this a Permaculture 101 and 102 for the homeowner. It's got really nice layout. It's got, of course, great photos, but the diagrams are also very clear, and I appreciate that. I'm a visual thinker, and that lets me conceptualize things better. Also, the customer that I'm recently working with, she had this book, and she kept referencing it, and I have borrowed this book from the library multiple times, and I just never got around to buying my own copy. So I dropped $20, realizing that if she wants to keep looking at this book, we look at it together, and I can use that to help facilitate the communication. So, it's got this really wonderful graphic on, there we go, sector analysis. You can use this to figure out your microclimates. You can use it to see fire danger, wind direction, whether you've got it's basically a way of like taking a snapshot of your landscape and looking at literally the big picture. Sometimes people get so focused on the details with design in anything, not just permaculture, but anything, you literally miss the big picture. And I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit deeper here for the main segment. But yeah, this came out. That's actually a good question. Looks like it first came out in 2015. So we're kind of with the, this sort of round 3 resurgence of permaculture. And it's one of those that I grabbed it so many times from the library. I don't know why I didn't pick up my own copy sooner. Probably because I feel like I have enough permaculture books or books in general. But, it's just like YouTube, guys. Like two people can explain the same exact thing to you, but you will understand one person better because of the way they presented it or the examples that they use. So I just figure it's, one more tool in my toolbox. And I felt like for the most part, what is in this book, and I haven't obviously read it cover to cover, just came in the mail a few days ago, but on flipping through it, it does not perpetuate some myths about permaculture. And like I said, that also is going to be kind of part of the main topic here. Let's go ahead and get into that. So this was what was on my mind, kind of following up this consult that I had on the west end of the state. And that is, we need to be careful not to overcomplicate things. As people who design and implement systems, as people who teach others, complicating things needlessly does not make you look smarter. And there have been times that I have wondered, that I have struggled with a little bit of imposter syndrome, because I like to keep things as simple as possible. And when you dig into certain aspects of permaculture or other design sciences, it seems like that the more you layer things and add complexity, you can get yourself into a little bit of a pickle, especially if you don't really understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, coffee break. Okay. For example, I have encountered people, and this is a generalization. I'm not really calling out anybody in particular. This is just something I've observed in the last few years interacting with people about this stuff. They feel like they have to take every single technique that is a permaculture technique and put it to work on their land, whether or not it makes any sense. So this is where one of the principles is that you design from patterns to details. And in my mind, identifying patterns butts right up against the observe and interact principle, which is kind of something that I like to drill down on with people because it answers most of the questions for you. Everything else just builds off of that. So, for instance, it does not make sense to become obsessed with adding with trying to make a wet spot in a yard a dry spot without understanding why it's wet to begin with. So we find a low spot in a yard and it always holds water. Well, why? We need to know why first before we even really mess with it. Is it a broken municipal line underground? Is it the termination point for drainage tile from a roof and a downspout? Is it a portion of a pump or a wellhead or something that is leaking somehow? Is it just a natural spring? Should it be there? Should it not be there? So just because you see a wet spot doesn't mean it needs to be a wetland. And just because the wet spot is there in January and February doesn't mean it's going to be there in August. So you got to investigate, right? So this is where one of those things is like, observe this for a while. And, you know, and if your water meter is crazy high, well, then you probably know your problem. And this was, this kind of spurred this thinking process I was going through about this is where if you look at the differences between kind of traditional layout, you know, yard design, like whether it's, you know, ornamental or not, just if you take regular design, conventional design, and you try to flip it into a permaculture design, you can wind up with unnecessary complexity. I can think of an instance where I was on a site a few years back, and the person wanted all native stuff all the time, and nothing that could be considered invasive or ornamental. They wanted to be native and edible for the most part, and so they wanted these forsythia bushes removed. Which, I mean, I get it. They, you know, they're yellow for a little while, they bloom early, and then you know, they're not. Everybody has a different agenda about them. But what I observed, because I took the time to observe, was that there were multiple birds' nests in that forsythia. It could be cut back a little bit. Its size could be contained. It's not like you had to, you know, the removal didn't have to be the only choice. Removal and replacement. There were some rocks around it, and there were some lizards running around. And, you know, I looked at it and I said, well, do we really need to change this? Forsythia blooms very early. It's an early food for bees. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't spread erratically. It's easy to control its size. But this person was so fixated on, we can only have natives. We can't have this. And actually, I don't know, forsythia might be native. I have no idea. But just as an example, you know, if you get yourself so fixated in one form of thinking, and you kind of automatically close your mind to, well, what can I work with here? So that's just another example. It kind of reminds me of when you see folks who dress up their vehicles or their motorcycles or whatever, and they add all this flash and bling and color and you know, accessories, but it still runs like crap. So it's okay to have a simple yard, or certainly to start simple and to then slowly add elements in. It's kind of what Dad says, Chrome don't make you go, right? So again, patterns to details. Look at the big picture, do a site analysis, walk around with it with somebody else. It doesn't even have to be a designer, somebody who doesn't live there. Look at things and ask yourself, why is this the way it is? And does it need to change? And if it does need to change, why? And if we're going to change it, how? And then that takes you into, we're going to change it slowly. We live in an era where we can do a lot of damage real quick, so even with, things like a chainsaw. And then if you bring in heavy equipment, man, the damage can happen real quick. It's hard to screw up a swale if you've taken your time to at least string it off, understand what contour means, and dig it a little bit with a broad fork or a shovel. But if you bring in a Mini X and you start slinging soil all over the place, you can have a real disaster, an expensive one, very fast. So this is kind of, I'm coming back to slow down and understand why you're doing things. And this might be something that I need to ask people more of when they want help with a property design, a homestead design. I've noticed this a few times before. Most people, they don't actually care about the whole permaculture thing. I mention it because it's part of the skill set that I have, but it's just, like I said, it's a tool in the toolbox. I am not so evangelical about it. Sometimes I will do things or make suggestions that aren't technically a permaculture solution, but it gets us in the direction that we need to go to be more resilient. That's what I look at. I can't fault the design science of permaculture. It's solid. It's absolutely solid. And the principles work together beautifully. But I think people see these awesome books and they see these just absolutely amazing YouTube videos and documentaries like The Biggest Little Farm and all kinds of stuff. And they're inspired, and that is awesome. And it's like they want all of it exactly like that right away. And this is coming from somebody where I built out my property, my original property in the city, over 14 years, and probably still had stuff that I could do and adjust and improve as I learned when we sold it in 2020. So when you are looking at any kind of changes, property changes, the way you want to, even the way you want to run your life. Most of us will do this on January 1st. We'll try to completely overhaul everything. We have about a week of momentum, and then we're just SOL. Slow your roll a little bit and ask yourself why you're doing it and how fast does this have to happen. This is, I can absolutely attest. This is a theme that I have recognized in my own life, and I've got multiple anecdotes to back it up. And I'm telling you guys this because I'm impatient too. And I want to see things get fixed right away, really fast. I don't want to, I have trouble like being in like an interim stage. I want things to be either, going or just done. I have a hard time with unfinished projects and things of that nature. It's why you won't ever find a lot of, undone things, large undone things, little things always, but large undone things, in my life, because it actually makes me pretty miserable for it to be that way. So, coming from that mindset that I have, it's just a good reminder that everything worth building should be built in a way that is very mindful. That's my wisdom for you on that. And I will add one other little thing here, because I made this note for a reason. Again, if you're looking at permaculture design or any kind of design science or any kind of changes in your life or in your property or however, ask yourself, if you find yourself saying, well, I should do that, versus I want to do that, especially when it comes to lifestyle design, I think that's significant. And I have really pushed my in my own little kind of personal growth realm to get away from the I should thinking, because to me that is coming from something outside of me. That is some kind of societal pressure or whatever, some BS off the internet, instead of me looking inward and saying, no, I want to conduct my life this way. Not I should do this or that. Because if you listen to the internet, I should do an ice bath, and I should you know, be Jocko and be up at 3 a.m. every day. No, I shouldn't, and I don't want to do any of that, and none of that will serve me. But I should do certain things, and I know exactly what they are. You know, I know exactly what they are, and the more I discipline myself to stay on that path, the better that I do. Mr. Dixon, thank you for popping in. If you missed it earlier, we got a good new segment, so go catch it on the replay. Interactions with people on Facebook Marketplace. It's good times. All right, the last thing I got on the agenda to let you guys know about is I've mentioned this to some people before, but not really overly publicly, except for actually it did come up with my interview with John Willis last week, which isn't released yet, but it'll be out whenever it gets out. One of our primary goals out here at the property is to start an education center. And that will be, of course, one of the big things to really make that successful is we need a building for it. We need a dedicated building. I want it to be a book library, a tool library, a gathering place, a place that can be rented for small events, a place that I can use to host my classes for the different things I teach out here. So I will keep the community apprised, but right now, Angel and I are sitting down and we are talking about what our structure is going to be in terms of like the entity itself, like what kind, how do we want to legally structure it, how that's going to work, what kind of building we want, and of course how much we're going to need to make in order to get it, what kind of offerings we're going to have, and who is our target community. A lot of these questions we have partially answered, but we're really getting it all down on paper because ultimately sometime this year I'm going to launch excuse me, I'm going to launch Kickstarter, and I want to know exactly, for the people who choose to participate in the Kickstarter, I want them to know exactly what they're getting for it. I've watched a lot of my friends in the community, Sean Mills, Nicole, and others have successful Kickstarters to grow a portion of their business. And this is something that we have been saving money for it. But I kind of am running up against a few hard stops when it comes to this is the kind of thing where we're going to need to pay for it outright. I do not want to finance. That is not something I'm interested in doing. I'm not doing a rent to own. We are ordering a building that they will deliver on site, but I will need to pay for site prep, and there's other things that will need to be paid for. And when I am a little bit because of the way I structure my business, I have some hard limitations. It's hard for me to scale up really big and stash a bunch of money away when I don't want to have employees. So what we've decided to do is that we will hold a Kickstarter and probably have an adjoining like Patreon account where there will be exclusive offerings based off of what I have to teach and what I have to share. And then, of course, we will have various levels for people to choose from that they would like to contribute and to be a part of that. So if you guys have thoughts about that, if you have, if this is something you would want, let's envision for a second, even if you don't live here near Knoxville, if you had something like this in your area, what would you like to have? Frankly, and this may come off sounding strange, but I have teen entities like this in other cities. I'm not talking about Knoxville anymore. I've seen kind of like tool share places and stuff like that. And they weren't well run. They weren't well cared for. Communication was terrible. Like I looked at this years ago because we thought about doing it back at the old place. We thought about doing something kind of similar, just smaller. And I want this to be, I want people to know exactly what they're getting, what they can expect, and how it's all going to come together. I want this to be centered around people who are doers, who take personal responsibility and freedom in their lives very seriously. That's all important to me. So if you guys have thoughts about that, I would be eager to hear them. You know how to holler at me, strongrootsresources@gmail.com. And otherwise, I think I'm going to wrap it up for the night. I'm already starting to lose my voice, and I've got to talk a lot tomorrow. So I'm gonna head on in. I appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Ping, let me know. We'll find a way to get you some elderberry. They will be fine to act as cuttings way up until mid spring. So no big rush there. Dixon, thanks for hopping in. Everybody, thank you for hanging out tonight, and we will catch up with you next time.